At the Fashion Week gala, my aunt sneered. She sews dresses in a tiny shop. How quaint! Everyone laughed. I smiled and checked my phone. The acquisition of her luxury brand was complete. Tomorrow, when the press reveals who really owns the billion-dollar Northlight Atelier fashion house. My name is Elise Dalton. I'm 31 years old. Tonight, I'm invisible, and that's exactly how I want it. The gala is a glittering ocean of champagne and razor-sharp smiles, and my aunt, Regina Valente, is the great white shark circling the center of the room. She's the creative head of Valente Couture, a woman who wears her legacy like armor. I'm just a face in the crowd, a ghost she can't quite see. She finally finds me near the bar, where I'm holding a simple glass of water, letting the ice melt. "Elise, darling," she says, her voice loud enough for the circle of journalists and buyers around her to hear. "How sweet of you to come. I do hope you're not bored. It must be a world away from your quaint little mending shop." The circle around her chuckles politely. It's the same condescending tone she's used since I was a child, a pat on the head that's meant to feel like a slap. I just smile. I let her believe I'm still that girl, the one she can dismiss with a wave of her hand. My fingers brush against the cool, worn metal in my pocket, an antique silver thimble I always carry. It's a small, solid weight, a reminder of my craft, my purpose, and the patience I've learned. A faint scent, earthy and clean like wet stone after rain, rises from the cuff of my dress. It's the secret signature of the plant-based silk my brand, Northlight, developed. A secret she knows nothing about. While she holds court, basking in the flash of cameras, I glance at my phone. A single encrypted message from Nora Kaplan, my operations director, is waiting. Final transfer queued. 9 a.m. That's all it says. That's all it needs to say. Tomorrow morning, 1 hour before her show. Regina turns back to me, her smile tightening. "You should come backstage tomorrow morning, dear. We could always use an extra pair of hands for last-minute alterations." It's not a request. It's a command, a final twist of the knife, to remind me of my place. The mender. The help. "I'll be there," I say, my voice even. It's the confrontation she wants, just not the one she's expecting. I was 22, and my entire future was contained in a black leather portfolio filled with sketches. My senior collection at design school wasn't just a project. It was my soul on paper. There was a negative space corset that used the body itself as part of the design, carving curves from empty air. And there was a bias-cut gown designed to move like smoke, a whisper of fabric that followed the wearer's every breath. It was the best work I had ever done. Back then, my Aunt Regina was my mentor, my hero. She was the one who taught me how to find the grain of a fabric with my fingertips, to respect the drape, to listen to what the material wanted to become. She visited my university studio a few months before graduation. She walked around my dress forms, touching the muslin mock-ups with a reverence that made my heart swell. She called the designs transformative. She said the industry was stale, that it was crying out for a voice like mine. Her warmth felt like the purest kind of pride, and I soaked it in. She asked if she could borrow the sketches, just for a weekend. She wanted to show a friend at a big fashion magazine, she said, just to get some preliminary feedback. I was so eager for her approval, so sure of her love, that I handed the portfolio over without a second thought. I trusted her. She was family. The thought of her stealing from me was as impossible as the sun rising in the west. 2 months later, Valente Couture released its new Mirage collection. My corset and my gown were the centerpiece looks, splashed across every fashion blog and magazine cover. There was no credit, no mention of my name, not even a whisper. When I finally got her on the phone, my voice shaking, she told me I was being hysterical. She said that all artists borrow ideas, and I should be flattered that my student work had inspired her. The next week, the university called. My $42,000 scholarship, the one that was supposed to fund my master's degree in London, had been rescinded. The donor, a prominent industry figure, had been contacted by an insider who warned them I was unreliable and prone to, quote, creative instability. It was Regina's exact wording from our phone call. The doors didn't just close, they were bolted shut from the inside. I applied for 9 internships at major fashion houses. 9 rejections arrived in crisp, impersonal envelopes. The calls I made went unreturned. My professors, who had once championed me, suddenly grew distant. I was blacklisted before my career had even begun. She didn't just steal my designs. She tried to erase my future. She tried to bury me. That's when I learned that some betrayals don't make you weaker. They don't break you. They make you methodical. So I moved to Milan. I found a tiny, forgotten storefront near the canals and opened a repair shop. Elise's Mending. The simple sign read, it was the perfect cover. Tourists brought me their torn silk scarves, and locals trusted me with their heirloom wedding gowns. People saw a humble seamstress, a woman with clever hands and a quiet smile. They never thought to look any closer. But in the back room, behind a soundproofed, reinforced door, was the real studio. Northlight Atelier. My world. My secret. I hired Liam Parker, a handsome actor with a charming smile and absolutely no fashion experience, to be my public face. He attended the galas and posed for the articles, while I stayed in the studio, cutting the patterns and perfecting the seams. I poured every penny I made, every waking hour, into developing a new material. I found a small, family-owned mill in Como and partnered with its director, a man named Marco Bellini. He believed in the science of my idea, not in a famous name. Together, we created a proprietary plant-based silk that was stronger, more luminous, and more sustainable than anything on the market. It became our signature. Northlight grew in the shadows, becoming an underground obsession, whispered about by those in the know. Our waitlist stretched for 4 months, then 6. We were a ghost, a myth with an annual revenue of $180 million. But success wasn't enough. Every time I saw a Valente couture ad, every time I saw a celebrity wearing one of my designs on a red carpet, it felt like a fresh wound. The real turning point, the second reveal of what was possible, came during a late-night financial review with Nora, my operations director. Nora's background wasn't in fashion. It was in corporate rating. She saw angles I never would have. She spread Valente Couture's financial reports across the table and pointed to a line, deep in the red. The house was a glittering facade, dripping with prestige but bleeding money. It was vulnerable. Nora proposed a new strategy. She said, quote, "Don't just outcompete Regina, own her." So we began. We started quietly buying up Valente's debt through anonymous holding companies, shell corporations that couldn't be traced back to us. Small pieces at first, then larger and larger chunks. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my name and protecting the art. It was for the 218 Italian workshop employees, the artisans whose jobs Regina's mismanagement was running into the ground. The day we acquired the final block of debt was the day the plan stopped being a dream and became a reality. I sat with Nora in our small, stark office, the numbers glowing on her laptop screen. We now held $31, $750,000 of Valente Couture's debt. We weren't just a competitor anymore. We were the bank. The weight of that number was immense. It was more money than I had ever imagined. A sum so large that one mistake, one miscalculation, could ruin us completely. With this move, Luca Romano, Valente's chief financial officer, would have no choice but to answer our calls. The board, led by its chair, a woman named Giulia Conti, would have a legal duty to listen to their primary debt holder, us. This was the point of no return. I was no longer just building my own house. I was placing a lien on hers. The personal cost was suddenly crystal clear. If this plan failed, I wouldn't just be blacklisted again. I'd be financially destroyed, and Regina would make sure the entire world knew how I had crashed and burned. My goal was no longer just to get credit for my stolen work. It was to take control. The next piece of the puzzle was the supply chain. I flew to Como to meet with Marco Bellini at his family's mill. Over espresso in his sun-drenched office, I offered him a 5-year exclusive contract to produce our plant-based silk. The budget I proposed was enough to guarantee his family's business for a generation. His eyes widened, but he was a cautious man. He read the contract carefully. Tucked inside was a new clause, one Nora had drafted. It stated that if Northlight ever became the primary debt holder for another fashion house, our exclusivity would extend to any materials that House sourced from his mill. It was a net designed to catch one specific fish. He signed. With that single stroke of a pen, I controlled the production of Valente's signature silk. The final piece was the stage itself. Regina loved to borrow the prestige of historic palazzos for her shows. Nora, with her knack for finding cracks in any foundation, discovered that the deposit for this year's show at the Grand Palazzo off Via Manzoni was paid late. We saw our opening. Through one of our holding companies, we approached the venue manager, a polished woman named Clara Bennett. We offered to pay the full deposit immediately, in cash, and we added a contingency. The contract gave our holding company the right to take over the booking entirely if the ownership or controlling financial interest of Valente Couture were to change hands before the show. Clara, focused on securing her payment, readily agreed. Regina was about to walk onto a stage that I owned, to show a collection made from fabric I controlled, for a company that answered to me. She just didn't know it yet. Back at the gala, Regina's voice cuts through the polite chatter like glass breaking. "Elise, darling, you must be so bored with all this," she says, gesturing vaguely at the opulent room. "So much more. Grand than mending a hem, isn't it?" Her friends titter. The insult hangs in the air, thick and sweet like cheap perfume. Liam Parker, my brand's handsome public face, is standing a few feet away. He gives me a subtle, questioning look over the rim of his champagne flute. He knows me well enough to know that my quiet smile is a mask, and he can sense that something is about to happen. A well-known fashion journalist, Hannah Reid, a woman whose sharp articles could make or break a career, watches our exchange from a distance. Her expression is unreadable, but she's taking it all in. The laughter from Regina's circle is sharp, a public dismissal designed to reinforce my place at the bottom of the fashion food chain. She's not just insulting my cover story, she's insulting my craft, the very skill she once pretended to admire in me. This is her power, the currency she trades in. Public opinion, powerful connections, a legacy name that opens any door. She believes it makes her untouchable. I don't react. I don't flinch. I just hold her gaze and give her a small, patient smile. Her mistake is thinking the game is still being played on her terms. She looks at me and sees a mender, a harmless niece with a little hobby. She doesn't see the woman who controls her debt, her supplier, and her stage. This public insult isn't a loss for me. It's the final confirmation I needed. There can be no room for sentiment. There can be no second thoughts. Dawn breaks over Milan, casting a soft, golden light on the city's ancient stones. I arrive backstage at the Palazzo, just as Regina requested. The air is already thick with the chemical scent of hairspray and the nervous energy of 100 people moving too fast in a tight space. She spots me from across the room and gestures dismissively toward a rack of impossibly beautiful gowns. "There," she says, not even bothering to look at me directly. "A zipper is stuck on the third look. Make yourself useful." I don't say a word. I just pick up a needle and my silver thimble, and I get to work. I blend into the chaos. Another anonymous pair of hands. The models sit impassively in their chairs, while makeup artists paint their faces. The production crew shouts lighting cues into headsets. Paolo Ferraro, the weary head of Valente's atelier, gives me a tired but respectful nod. He and his team of artisans are the real heart of this house, and in a way, they're the ones I'm doing this for. My eyes land on Maureen Rossi, a young intern scurrying through the room. Regina stops her and berates her for bringing the wrong kind of coffee, her voice a low, vicious hiss. The girl flinches, looking terrified and small. In her eyes, I see myself at 22. It's 8:55 a.m., 5 minutes to go. The whole room is a powder keg, and I'm holding the match. At 9:01 a.m., the first phone lights up, then another and another, like fireflies waking in the dusk. A low murmur spreads through the room, a ripple of confusion turning into a wave of shock. A financial news alert has just been pushed to every phone in Milan. It announces that a little-known holding company, now publicly identified as a subsidiary of Northlight Atelier, has acquired majority control of Valente Couture's debt. Regina's phone buzzes on the table beside her. She glances at it, and the blood drains from her face. She shakes her head, convinced it's a mistake, some kind of elaborate prank. Her assistant runs up, phone pressed to her ear, whispering frantically. Luca Romano, the CFO, is on the line, and he sounds like he's having a heart attack. At the exact same moment, a call comes in for the production manager. It's Marco Bellini from the Como Mill. He's calling to inform them that the final shipment of silk, the fabric needed for the show's finale look, has been halted, per the direct instructions of the new primary debt holder. The last safe option, pushing through the show and dealing with the money problems later, is gone. The ticking clock hasn't just run out, it has just exploded. In the sudden, panicked silence that follows, I look past Regina's stunned face to the atelier team huddled by the door. I see the raw fear in Paolo Ferraro's eyes. He isn't thinking about stock prices or brand prestige. He's thinking of his 218 artisans, their jobs, their families, their mortgages. For one sickening second, I'm not their liberator. I'm just another corporate raider in a designer dress, dismantling a legacy for profit. My own core wound, Regina's voice on the phone, telling the scholarship board I was unreliable, echoes in my head. Am I becoming just as ruthless as she was? Am I about to destroy hundreds of lives just to settle a personal score? The victory, so meticulously planned, feels hollow for a split second. The plan is perfect on paper, but the fallout is human and messy and real. My isolation feels immense. No one in this room knows why I'm really doing this. They just see a hostile takeover. Then I see the intern, Marin, the girl Regina had humiliated over a cup of coffee. She isn't looking at my aunt, she's looking at me. And in her wide, intelligent eyes, there's not fear, but a flicker of dawning understanding. That's when I know I have to see it through. This isn't just about tearing something down. It has to be about building something better. Something stronger in its place. Regina, I say, my voice calm and clear enough to cut through the rising panic. "We should talk. In private." I gesture toward a small green room off to the side, its windows looking out on the magnificent spires of the Duomo. She follows me, her fury a tangible force, her body rigid with disbelief. The moment the door closes, she explodes. "What is this? Some kind of sick joke? You think your little hobby brand, your tiny mending shop, can touch me?" I don't raise my voice. I don't need to. I simply place a slim leather portfolio on the polished table between us. Inside are the debt agreements, the new contract with the Como mill, and the signed contingency for the venue. Every chain I've spent years forging. "It's not a joke," I say softly. Northlight now controls Valente's financing, its primary supplier, and as of 10 minutes ago, this building. As if on cue, there's a soft knock on the door. Clara Bennett, the venue manager, pokes her head in, her expression perfectly neutral. "Excuse me, Ms. Valente, Ms. Dalton," she says, her gaze shifting to me for confirmation. "We have a question about the signage for the runway entrance. Which name should we put up?" Regina stares at her, speechless. The full scope of her situation, the sheer claustrophobic totality of her defeat, is finally dawning on her. The walls have not just closed in, they have vanished, replaced by walls I built. "You have two options," I continue, my voice even and steady. "Option 1, the show goes on. The models walk. The press takes their pictures. But first, you will go out to that live stream microphone, and you will publicly credit me for the Mirage collection designs you stole from me 9 years ago. You will also announce that Valente Couture will be transitioning to a Valente for Northlight collaboration. That collaboration will save all 218 jobs in Paolo's workshop. And option 2? She sneers, her voice trembling with a rage that has nowhere to go. Option 2, you refuse. Clara cancels the venue immediately. The fabric never arrives, and by noon today the board, chaired by Julia Conti, will receive an official notice. They will accept Northlight's offer to buy out the entire company at a significant discount to clear the debt that we now hold. You will be left with nothing but a name. Her power, the name, the connections, the press pool waiting outside, is useless against the simple binding words on the papers in front of her. Through the slightly ajar door, I can see Marin, the intern, watching us, her eyes wide. She sees the entire exchange, the quiet, bloodless coup. Regina looks from the papers to my face, searching for a trace of the niece she could bully, the girl she could dismiss. But that girl isn't there anymore. She finally slumps into a chair, all the fight gone out of her. "Get the microphone ready," she whispers, defeated. A new sign is hung above the entrance to the runway. In clean, bold letters, it reads, Valente for Northlight. The show begins, an hour late but charged with a strange new energy. Just before the final look, Regina steps up to the microphone. Her face is a pale, tight mask, but her voice is steady as she reads the statement I prepared. She says my name. She tells the world that I was the young, uncredited visionary behind her most famous collection. She announces the new collaboration. The final model, a rising star named Sophia Marino, steps onto the runway. She's wearing a perfect recreation of my negative space corset, but this time, it's made from Northlight's proprietary silk. It shimmers under the lights, moving like liquid moonlight. The faint, clean scent of it reaches me in the wings. It's my signature, finally out in the open for everyone to see. As Sophia turns at the end of the runway, the room, which had been stunned into silence, erupts in a roar of applause and camera flashes. The journalist, Hannah Reed, is already typing furiously on her phone, a look of pure revelation on her face. I watch from the wings, hidden in the shadows. I see Marin Rossi carefully take a small, elegant Northlight pin from a box I left for her and fix it to the lapel of her blazer. She's the first to publicly align with the new regime. My fingers close around the silver thimble in my pocket. At the gala last night, it was a hidden secret, a private comfort. Now, it feels like a scepter. I didn't destroy Volante Couture. I refit it. The next season's labels won't just have a brand name. They will credit every single maker, every artisan, every hand that touched the fabric, starting with the one who was once told she didn't belong. Sometimes, the only way to get justice is to design it yourself. If you've ever had to fight to have your work recognized, share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one.